on a London street by two Muslim terrorists. One of them tried to justify their jihad. See, originally we had the tape there, and then I thought, it, we don't need to see him. The scumbag terrorists remain hospitalized after being shot by police at the scene. And police have made two further arrests, raising the possibility that it wasn't a lone wolf killing as first thought. Here's Prime Minister David Cameron.
First, this country will be absolutely resolute in its stand against violent extremism and terror. We will never give in to terror or terrorism in any of its forms. Second, this view is shared by every community in our country.
Cameron also emphasized that, quote, there is nothing in Islam that justifies this truly dreadful act. And he noted that more Muslim lives have been lost in terrorist acts than any other religion. I wonder why. All right, Buck, I go to you first. You've worked with the CIA and the NYPD's counterterrorism unit. Could this attack have been stopped? Didn't they know these guys already?
Probably not, and that's never the answer that people want to hear.
Yeah.
Usually there's the radicalization process. There are a few steps somebody goes through, and it's really up to somebody around them being like, wow, this guy's really crazy, and bringing it to the attention of the authorities. What I thought was interesting in this case is you have very clearly an instance where you have a guy who's literally standing up saying, I did this for jihad. I believe the Quran justifies why I did it. I did it because of U.S. policy. I'm a Muslim, and I killed that guy, and here's the bloody knife I'm holding. And the media reports about it initially were like, man dead in London. Meeting called. I swear that was Reuters' first thing. You're like, they're trying so hard that they don't even believe the motive of the guy who's saying this was my motive.
It used to be that if you decided to identify what had happened, they would disagree with you. And then when they find out they're wrong, they say, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. It's just murder. Imogen, you're British.
I'm a Londoner.
You're a Londoner.
Born and bred Londoner, lived there for 30 years.
Does it bother you when some people actually sympathize with a terrorist? I mean, that happened in Boston. In this case, he said an eye for an eye, and there were people in The Guardian that said, yeah, okay.
I think what struck me most about all of this is Londoners and the whole keep calm, carry on. And Londoners really do embody that. Those three women, before the police arrived, who were talking to these guys wielding machetes, talking them down. Unbelievable, and actually very much Londoners. And then the Brits crashing the website Help for Heroes. The soldier that very sadly died was wearing a Help for Heroes T-shirt.
Right.
It's a charity that's supported by William and Harry for the military, and it's been inundated. It crashed. Everyone's been buying these T-shirts, and I know I'm going to go back to London in 2 weeks, and everybody in London's going to be walking around wearing those T-shirts in solidarity.
Well,
the soldier killed. Just
here's the thing this was in The Guardian, Gavin. Glenn Greenwald, who's a writer, questioned whether the attack should be called terrorism because the victim was a soldier of a nation at war, essentially making us all terrorists because civilians get killed with drone attacks, so it would make sense.
Whoa. No, we're not all terrorists because there's a potential that a drone could kill us. But I think that's a valid argument.
Really?
Not what you said, but that this was a terrorist attack. It was clearly a terrorist attack.
Right.
And that's how America won the revolution. We said, we're going to change the rules, hide in trees, shoot them. And they were saying, and then we weren't there, and we pegged them off. And Muslims are doing this now with jihad. They don't have uniforms. They're popping out of nowhere. And we are still stuck in this whole, like Fort Hood was a terrorist attack.
Right.
He said Allah Akbar. We have to treat these people like the amorphous enemies they are.
Yes.
And behead them back.
Yes.
Sawing somebody's head off in public, in broad daylight, in front of a bunch of innocent bystanders, that's as much terrorism as I think anything could be.
But they're at the point.
The intent is to terrorize. And people, Greenwald and I have had our disagreements, many disagreements in the past. People really need to understand that there's this soft peddling from some so-called sort of international relations experts about how, it's not really terrorism. Well, then at some point, you've just eliminated any definition of terrorism.
Exactly.
Totally.
And this is really scary, bad stuff. This is an Islamokhazi who's cutting a guy's head off in broad daylight.
But we're so PC now that we are hurting Al Qaeda in a sense. Like they go, this was us. We did hit the World Trade Center. Stop saying we're lone wolves. We're a team. And when the guy was sawing the head off, he was saying, film this, take pictures. We're cutting the geezer's head off.
He gave specific Quranic injunction, and there were still media outlets who were like, let's not jump to conclusions about any Islamic involvement here.
They're bending over backwards to take credit for a horrible act, and even the media.
They want to find a way for America to somehow be responsible. What did we do? Who did we anger? Who did we upset by, battling Muslim extremism? What did we do to deserve this in some way or to inspire this? So we can modify our behavior in the future, and somehow if we become weaker or less involved, they think that we're going to be attacked less. No, we become weaker and less involved. We get attacked more.
But that's ironic because that is what we did wrong. We have made patriotism uncool in this country. We send kids home for wearing American shirts, and that makes a vacuum where kids get sucked into Islam. I mean, the Boston bombers were radicalized in the States. These guys were radicalized in Britain.
Good point.
We have an epoch now where it's not cool to like your country, so young men are passionate. Well, what should I be passionate about?
Yeah,
not the West. Okay, what about jihad?
We've got some Brits at the table, but I can say that from just the counterterrorism perspective, the Brits have gotten a lot better about this. The Swedes, by the way, just today in the news, there's this Swedish, they're talking about riots, and they're saying it's immigrant riots. Those are Muslims who are there with asylum. They fled their country. They're being given welfare wages, and they act like it's a bunch of Swedes who have run out of IKEA furniture or something.
I looked on 4 different websites to find information on what was going on in Sweden, and it was all disillusioned immigrants. They would not say the M word at all. But the thing, I want to ask you, Imogen, because this is something that we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah.
We used to talk about assimilation as a good thing, and it feels like we're seeing the reverse of assimilation, where even citizens who are here refuse the culture of your country while reaping its benefits. In fact, if you convert to Muslim, in a way you cannot be a citizen. Is that what's happening?
I think I would disagree with that. In London. London is a place, 300 languages are spoken in London. We have a huge Muslim population in London.
Way too big.
But foreigners are what make London great. 35% of people in London have been born abroad, and that's part of what makes London what it is. It's a melting pot, and I think for the most part we do live peacefully together. And as I say, the keep calm, carry on thing, battling terrorism, there is a Londoner spirit. You saw it during the Olympics, you saw it after.
But ultimately, does the London spirit matter if you lose? I mean, if you do
that woman stood there fighting with a guy with a machete, saying you were going to.
There was a great interview with Anjem Chowdhury, who's a very well-known extremist over there. Yeah. And I forget who the guy was. He's a British interviewer, and he says, if you don't like being here, why don't you go back to somewhere else? And he goes, well, what makes you think this is your country? Right. That's actually the mindset you're dealing with when you're talking about the radicalized and the extreme and the people that are doing these kinds of things.
I mean, everything you say is laudable, Imogen, but you do not address the fact that if there are immigrants coming to your country who are leaving a horrible place, but come to your place and decide that they don't want to assimilate there, they actually want to adopt the same attitudes that made their place that they left horrible. You can't just say stiff upper lip. Let's go.
I would argue that so many do want to come there and do want to be part of the community. And I think also in London it is different in the sense that we spent years being bombarded by the Germans, by the IRA and so forth. And with terrorism, we do just keep calm and carry on. That's just something we do in London.
Have you been to Harrods recently? There isn't a woman in that entire department store that's not wearing a burqa.
And that's why...
London is gone.
And that is the reason...
It's Londonistan.
Foreigners are the reason why London can afford to keep the rest of Britain afloat.
London used to be like that.
The money coming
the Yardies
into
came to London, and now they're part of the English Defence League. They're soccer hooligans, and they're in there screaming with UK flags, the blacks. British blacks have UK flags. The new immigrants, they don't like London. They don't like the West. They want Sharia law on 10 Downing Street. London is lost.
A vast number of the new immigrants are keeping London afloat right now.
They're throwing butric acid in women's faces for not marrying the right guy.
And honor killings.
It's tiny percentage.
London was flushed down the toilet years ago.
All right. Well, that was
on that positive note.
Yes, exactly. All right. From an attack. That was fun, though. See, Red Eye we're not afraid to tackle the sensitive issues. Well, I wear these silly glasses. All right, from an attack to a defense. He threw drones a bone and gave the heave-ho to Gitmo. In a 13-hour speech at the National Defense University, President Obama defended drones, emphasizing that America does not take strikes when we can capture individual terrorists, that our preference is always to detain, interrogate, and prosecute them.
America does not take strikes when we have the ability to capture individual terrorists. Our preference is always to detain, interrogate, and prosecute them.
But ultimately, he said conventional air power missiles are far less precise than drones and likely to cause more civilian casualties and local outrage.
Conventional air power, or missiles, are far less precise than drones and are likely to cause more civilian casualties and more local outrage.
Of course, left unanswered was whether he believes it would be constitutional for the government to target and kill any U.S. citizen without due process, or whether any president should deploy armed drones over U.S. soil.
For the record, I do not believe it would be constitutional for the government to target and kill any U.S. citizen with a drone or with a shotgun without due process. Nor should any president deploy armed drones over U.S. soil.
Oh, anyway, the president also called on Congress to shut down Gitmo, but then Code Pinko got into the room.
You are commander-in-chief.
Let me address
You can close Guantanamo today.
Why don't you let me address it,
can release those 86 prisoners.
Why don't you sit down and I will tell you
by
exactly
your
what I'm
government today. That includes 57 Yemenis. It includes Shakir Amr.
Thank you. Thank you indeed. Jedediah, all right. The heckling to me seems like it could have been stopped a long time ago, but he kept it going because implicitly I think he agrees with her. How do they not know Code Pink? She's everywhere.
Not only there, but she lingered for a very long time. I kept saying, why is this woman still in the room? Why hasn't security removed her? She gave a whole speech, a monologue practically.
You know, it reminded me of Bill Schultz on Red Eye.
Yes.
It's like we're all sitting here going,
Waiting.
shut up!
Right, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
But I think he wanted her points to be heard. He
Right.
didn't want them to be heard from him.
That
But
exactly.
He wanted someone to say them, and he acknowledged them, and he kept saying, well, it's great that she's making these points. She's making some really, well, I don't agree with them all, but I think it's good that she's making these points. That was a big deal for the President of the United States to acknowledge those points.
Yeah.
They would never plant questions or manipulate media perception. They would never do that. Unlike last week when they planted the question about the IRS in front of the IG report. So we know they would not, in fact, ever engage in those kinds of shenanigans.
Buck, who was the speech aimed at? It sounded to me that it wasn't really aimed at the average American who's okay with drones. It was more like the European and the Middle Eastern communities or something. What was or was it just a distraction?
I'm calling it wag the drone, right? I think that really it got us to stop looking at the scandals that are plaguing the administration that they can't get. I mean, you actually almost start to feel bad
Yeah.
for Jay Carney getting hammered this all the time. I mean, Obama, it's year 5. He's been blowing people up now for 5 years,
Right.
and he's been pretending, by the way, they said they declassified Anwar al-Awlaki, that strike, and it's been on the front page of every newspaper. A few things I take away from this. One, some guys just got to get a missile to the face. I mean,
Right.
Anwar al-Awlaki being one of them. I don't think there's a whole lot of disagreement about that.
Yeah.
Not a much better way to deal with them. The other side of it, though, it's a little trickier, is they're saying there's very little damage from these strikes. There's very few problems that come from it. They named 4 U.S. citizens.
Mm-hmm.
They only meant to get 1. That's a 25% hit rate on U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, not the best for their case.
Imogen, what did you make of the speech overall? Do you think it satisfied the people you wanted to satisfy?
Well, I am the biggest fan of the president at this table, I would say, but I have been going on and on about Obama and drones to anyone who will let me.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, I maintain that the drones are the biggest threat to his legacy. And today was all about him trying to get his legacy out there and trying to make his legacy right and trying to put his stamp on history. This speech was 4 years too late. There are still huge questions going on about imminent threat. Well, what is imminent threat? I didn't hear a definition today. I mean, I know there's a lot of heckling going on. Still not quite sure what's going on there. Huge problems in international law. So no, he didn't really.
I think his
satisfy
legacy
me
is his
at
biggest
all.
threat to his legacy.
He's the biggest
Any way
threat
to
to
blow it
his
out.
legacy.
I think it's toast either way.
Okay, but here's the weird contradiction, Gavin. He says the preference is to detain and interrogate, but he wants to close Gitmo. How do you do that? Where do you keep them? Do they stay at your place?
I don't
in
know why he
Williamsburg?
promised he was
They
going to do
say it
that.
there.
Yes.
That was some big shoes to fill there,
Yes,
Barry.
yes.
But I remember a few weeks ago when drones was the most embarrassing thing about him, and Rand Paul did that huge speech.
Yes.
It's sort of like someone peed their pants, and then they get accused of rape and all these other pedophilia, and they go, "Remember when I peed my pants?" Like the drone is now the best thing about his career.
That was an unusually awkward and strange metaphor.
Thank you.
Yes.
The other thing I want to say about that was, you know why he let Code Pink drone on like that?
Why?
Good.
Feeding steak to the left-wing base. Feeding
Because
steak to the
he's
base.
not our first black president. He's our first female president. His dad was not around. He's a woman.
Oh, my God.
And so when Code Pink came out, he was like, these are my sisters.
You are terrible.
I got to give them a voice. I don't want to shut my sisters down.
You are terrible. Here's my theory. I disagree with you on that.
You don't think he's his mother?
No, I don't know. Maybe he's a
come on, they're
metrosexual.
close.
I like to think of myself
He's
as a
his mom.
metrosexual. I had 3 sisters.
I didn't say growing up with women makes you a woman. I said Barack Obama is a mirror of his mother's politics.
All right, that's different.
Well, that's why.
That's different.
This is next level stuff
Imagine
here.
his mom being harassed by Code Pink. She'd say, guys, this isn't really the place, but what are you talking about?
All right, I want to move on from this extremely strange point you're making. Okay, I do think that this was a distraction against the scandals. I think you always have to wonder about timing. Why this happened now? I think that's what it is. I think he made a plea, a very intelligent plea for drones. Like you said, too late.
Yeah.
But I think he made a plea for drones that made sense because he needs drones in order to close Gitmo. The other thing too is Gitmo is third base. Remember I'm maybe old, but the Abbott and Costello routine, who's on first?
Yeah.
I don't know, third base. That's always the answer.
Yeah.
You're always going to be stuck with Gitmo. It's like you put these people in there because they're going to kill you. When they get out, then they try to kill you. Where do you put them? I don't know. Gitmo. Gitmo.
Wait, why
exists.
is it a given that you need drones to close Gitmo? I don't get that.
Because you got to kill the people because you got no place to put them.
Yeah,
But we're talking about an infinite number of people. 25% of Muslims think suicide bombing is sometimes or often justified. That's 350 million people. That drone's going to get a hernia.
No, I think
I'm running out of bullets here, guys.
I like how he's giving a human element to the drones. I see
It's like Mickey Mouse.
Is this going to be a Pixar?
He's cute. He's got little ears. I got to take a break.
We have to take a break. Coming up, do good luck charms really work? Jedediah Bila discusses her new book, I Keep an Ex's Severed Foot in My Purse. Whatever works for you, Jedediah. But first, hey, look, it's hot chicks. Those must be stockbrokers. Must be a story about global stock markets falling after concerns that the U.S. may scale back monetary